And the crowd goes wild.
I was going to say, thank you, Mayor Turner and Commissioner Winters. Actually, Rachel Cicada will carry on the presentation today of our PM Advance Plan. Rachel's joining us from Portland, from our air quality program at headquarters, and traveled down here to be with us today. So appreciate everybody giving us the opportunity to catch up with everyone on where we are with our important particulate matter planning and meeting air quality standards.
Rachel, I always like to ensure that the audience on camera catches this quote. I mean, we know what's going on, but it may be new topic. You can give just a little synopsis of the district that led up to this point.
Certainly. So, good afternoon, members of the Town Council and County Commissioners. My name is Rachel Cicada. I'm an air quality planner out of the DEQ headquarters office. And I'm here today to talk to you about the Lakeview PM Advance Plan update. And just for a little bit of background, as some of you are aware and familiar, back in 2014, the town and the county put together the PM Advance Plan update to sort of basically address PM 2.5 emissions in the area. We noticed that monitoring data was showing that our levels were above the standard, and in order to help sort of ensure that the area was not going to be designated as non-attainment, which means that it's in violation of the federal health standards for PM 2.5. The town and the county put together this joint advisory committee and met for a year, and as a result of the committee put together this wonderful PM Advance Plan that was submitted to EPA that basically outlines a number of strategies that the town and county were going to undertake to reduce PM 2.5 emissions. And so that plan was adopted by both the town and the county back in 2014. And as part of this plan, it's a 5-year plan that sort of shows how you'll be reducing emissions. And so as part of this 5-year plan, EPA requests that you send in an update every year to basically show how things are going, what the emissions looks like, how the strategies are working, what's not. And so this is part of that annual update. This is actually year 3 of the update, of the 5-year update. And so we're just here before you again to sort of walk through what the update says and just basically to ask your approval to go ahead and submit it to EPA for them to look at and comment on. And I just want to make a note too that I may not have made last year when we were here, is that EPA loved your plan so much that they actually put it on their website and they were using it as a model for other communities to use in order if they wanted to develop a plan. And sort of this PM Advance program is a nationwide program that, and I should have mentioned this earlier, that communities can participate in. It's a volunteer program that communities can participate in to basically develop this plan to reduce emissions in their area without having to go through the whole what we call non-attainment process. Because I think as some of you may have heard before, with the non-attainment designation, there comes a lot of restrictions. There's restrictions on industry, which can be really difficult just from an economic standpoint for our community. You know, it basically means that your air is unhealthy, and so you're breathing unhealthy air, and you basically get what we call a 20-year date with EPA, which no one really wants to have that 20-year date with EPA. So you want to avoid a non-attainment designation as much as possible, and so this is one pathway to help ensure that the area is able to clean up their air and hopefully avoid that non-attainment designation. So, like I said, you all developed the PM Advance Plan as part of this program, and it includes emissions inventory, so it shows what sources are contributing to the PM 2.5 problem. It outlines what your monitoring data has been looking like over the past number of years, and then also outlines all the strategies that you have undertaken so far, and then also what you plan to do in the upcoming year. And so I'm more than happy to walk through that with you, and just to sort of highlight what the key parts are in this update. But I'll stop here and see if anyone has any questions really quick. Or not. And if not, then I'll just go ahead and keep going forward. So just in the PM Advance Plan update that we have before you, We've included the latest monitoring data, so it's data up through 2016. And if you'll note, 2016 was a great year for Lakeview. So kudos to all of you for really working hard to address air quality. It's also just fortuitous you had a really mild winter, so that helped as well. So the way that EPA determines compliance is based on what we call a 3-year rolling average. And so they look at the last 3 years worth of data, and then they take the average of that, and that's how, and then if that number is above or the standard, or if you're above the standard, then they basically consider you not meeting it or violating the standard. The standard that we're concerned about is the 24-hour PM2.5 standard, and that's at 35 micrograms per meters cubed. And based on the latest monitoring data that you will have from 2014 to 2016, your levels were at 31. So that's great news, because I think if you'll notice on page number 3, back in 2011 through 2013, 2012 through 2014, your levels were well above the standard, up in the 50s, and so that's why we took the action to put together this PM advance plan to try and lower your levels as much as possible. So 2016, good news, you're below, so that's fantastic. In here, we also just provide an emissions update, so it just shows what are all the sources contributing to PM 2.5 in the area, and as part of this plan, we had to forecast 5 years out to say, okay, this is what we expect the emissions to be. And as you can see, based on current 2017 estimated emissions, you're well below sort of our goals. So that's also really good news. So things are working well. And then in the next section, it just talks about the currently implemented strategies that are going on right now to reduce PM 2.5 emissions. So one of the key things that you have underway is the mandatory wood stove curtailment program, which the town implements. And so thanks to Dawn, she does all these lovely wood stove advisory calls to let people know whether or not it's a red, yellow, or green day, whether or not you can or cannot burn. And that really is an effective tool to making sure that levels stay below the standard. So we just sort of summarized what the 2016-2017 wood heating season was like. We also highlight other strategies that are currently going on. For example, the wood stove changeout program that SCO is managing right now. And there have been a number of changeouts within the area, so that's been fantastic news. And I know that there are a few more changeouts that will be occurring prior to the close of the program, which I believe will be at the end of this year. So you've had almost 100, over 100 stoves changed out. So that's really good news. Just making sure we get those old, dirty, uncertified stoves out of the homes and replacing them with cleaner burning devices, and in some cases, weatherizing the home as well. So that's really helpful in just improving residents' homes, as well as making sure they have a good, clean heating source.
Rachel, back on page 4, the very last part, it says primarily due to mild winter. We had an average or strong winter last year. It was quite a bit of snow and quite a bit of cold all last year. So that's sort of misleading if it says that was a mild winter last year.
It's really meaning through.
Yeah, so
I would think we should, and I know our wood program through our community service, we gave out more wood last year than we had in here.
So I think what I'm referring to mostly is probably the 2016 season. I know 2017 was it started off pretty well.
17, right?
Yeah,
right.
From January of 2016 through December 2016.
Yeah.
So the previous, January, February, March of 2016 was a non-year. But then we had a rather chilly 2017, January and February, that
January was the
Yeah. December was a little rough.
It wasn't as bad. I mean, the
I
wind
don't know
was.
if you remember this roads around here in those months.
But see,
Yeah.
with the air quality is the wind.
Yeah.
When the wind picks up, and that's my saving grace for air quality.
I get that, yeah.
Yeah.
We love the wind.
Sort of. It's so cold, but
Keep just
go ahead.
emissions
No
out of
worries.
town.
No worries. And so let's see here. And so then I also just mentioned the open burning prohibitions that you all established an ordinance a number of years ago that basically extends open burning prohibitions out to the urban, the UGB. and that's from November 1st through February 28th. And that's also another key strategy to sort of help minimize smoke emissions. And then probably one of the key things too is just the public education and awareness, because really just making sure people are informed about why wood smoke is a problem, and help making sure that they understand just to follow the wood stove curtailment calls. I know Dawn will be doing a lot of work with that, and just making sure that there are reader boards installed, or there's notification on the reader boards all throughout town to let people know about the curtailment calls, and just going through social media, Facebook, Twitter, all of those mechanisms, the 24-hour hotline, the radio stations, all of that, just trying to get the word out as much as possible, because that's really key.
And just for the audience, it's not to ban wood burning, because that's torture here. It's just to be aware of those days that we have no air movement inversions, where the smoke just sits here and accumulates. Those are the days that we really emphasize to be cautious about burning.
Right. Because I think overall what we found is that over a wood heating season, just depending on how many red days are called, it may only be 2 red days that are called for the entire wood heating season, that we're asking people not to burn in wood heating stoves, and then everything else is just yellow and green. And then there are some other winters where it's maybe a few more red days than that, and so just figuring out alternatives for folks. Okay. Let's see here, and then another strategy that's in place is just that there's an agreement with the Forest Service to not burn within the Lakeview Special Protection Zone, so just so that they are not doing burning that could impact the town during any of the poor air quality days.
And that protection zone is basically the air shed around Goose Lake Valley.
So, so in this update, probably the next key thing is just talking about future efforts about what's planned for the upcoming year. And so you'll be continuing to implement the mandatory wood stove curtailment ordinance, which is fantastic. And then that the county will work in coordination with the town to reach out to areas in the greater Lakeview area on education and outreach. Also, just that, just talking about the remaining funding for the wood stove changeout and weatherization, and so just how there's plans to spend the rest of it down before the program ends. And then just continued efforts to do education and outreach regarding wood stoves, wood smoke, and the curtailment. And just mentioning again that how we're putting those notices on the county fairgrounds reader board, which is a high visibility location, so that's fantastic. And also just continue outreach through health fairs, community groups, and print and social media outreach, because I know one of the things that's been effective in the past is putting notifications in, I think, the water bills that the town sends out. So just making sure people are kept informed. And then looking into the town block grant for that was in place a number of years ago to help replace wood stoves, and then maybe try to broaden the program to include businesses who could change out their old wood stove for a new one. So that basically summarizes the PM Advance Plan update, just sort of what things are working and how your levels seem to be improving. And so we'll just keep our fingers crossed for the upcoming 2017 wood heating season, which I know is going to be quickly upon us. But I think you have a lot of really good efforts in place outlined in this plan to sort of ensure success. So, like I said, the purpose of this is just to sort of highlight to EPA sort of the good work that you've been doing so far, to submit it to them, so then they can say, great, and continue on your good work, basically.
So, Ms. Brady, you have one other question here.
No.
In your summary, it says, in summary, Lakeview area has a robust PM advance plan that appears to be working. Can we change that to is working? I mean, that appears sort of, it is working. I mean, everything you talked about and we talked about is from the wood stove change out to their quality and everything. It is working. I think that's making a statement to the EPA is what's going on here. It is working. It doesn't appear to be, but it is. So that's just making a statement to the people that read this.
No, I think that's a great point.
We did have a downfall last January, but we learned from it and get back up and keep on going.
Right. Yeah, so as Commissioner Kessler was mentioning, January 2017 was a little rougher, just in terms of the monitoring data. So the way you look at compliance is you look at the 98th percentile, so of all the monitored data, so that'd be sort of your third highest value. So you've already gone over the standard. Your third highest value is already over the standard. So right now you are violating. However, if the rest of 2017 remains low, then your overall 3-year average, which is used to determine compliance, will still show that you're meeting it. And the reason why EPA kind of uses a 3-year average is because they recognize that you may have some outlier years, and so they want to sort of take more of a longer term look at sort of what PM is doing in the area. So so they recognize that you know 1 year may be really bad, but that's just sort of an aberration, and the other 2 years were sort of moderated out. So you've had some great years in 2016, 2015, so 2017 is a little high. Your overall average will still be below, so that's a good thing. You'll just have to kind of make sure that they'll stay low for the next 2 years, because that 2017 value will still count.
Do we have any data that says why we're so much higher this year?
I think it's just a number of things. You did have a really cold winter, so you didn't have much wind coming through. I think you just you're working out the kinks of the program. Just, you know, I know Donna is coming on, and she's been doing a great job with it. So you know, it's sort of a multitude of factors, but when you have cold weather, it definitely makes it more challenging. And so
I think we're all restarting on it.
yeah, I know. So it just made me more vigilant efforts to do more education outreach to the community and making sure that people really do follow the Woodstock curtailment calls.
And if I could add to that, Councilor Faulkner, there were a couple of periods of a little longer stagnation and colder times that a number of other communities in eastern Oregon had a difficult time with. Also had some times when the 24-hour average was exceeded. But it's wasn't just here. The winter was felt in a number of other spots and wasn't anticipated. And perhaps not coordinated as well with the National Weather Service and just that prediction tool, those prediction tools of understanding how long this cold may go on and when to make a call early enough to get the word out that we have to watch what we're contributing to the airshed early on, or it can build up like it did and then bid us here and a number of other communities.
That makes sense.
So should we change the time, instead of doing it at 11, change it to earlier?
We can look at that, and as part we'll review when we're working with the Weather Service on that forecasting and what might match their predictions to, and their understanding, because we have the information in our hand that says this is how the weather is looking to be. We might as well get the word out there.
Okay.
It's a little earlier. We'll work on that,
Okay.
but understanding, looking more 3 days, 4 days, trying to get the long term. And maybe it's been decades since there's, or a decade or more since there's been a 10-day stagnation. I'm trying to remember last period, but there's been some longer ones that lasted.
Back in 2013, we had extended period of stagnation. That's when we was off the chart.
And that's what we really need to watch for and plan better. Missed that in January with a number of other communities as well. After that mild early part until late December, and then people were, and part of that's the education components that the committee has been working on and outlined in the plan. Continue with that, so you have the buy-in and that understanding that tomorrow could be a different day or next week with the weather. We like to forecast it. We all wish we could forecast it well, but it can turn, and after being very nice and mild, we have to be very vigilant with our contributions to the air. You're going to turn around in a couple of days.
I want to note that the town's been doing a great job, Don, especially with all the patrols that you do, just to kind of, make sure people are informed about the curtailment and checking in on them. And so you're managing a lot for a big problem. So I want to definitely make sure that I acknowledge the town's hard work and the county's too.
And you've been on top of this with us, guiding us.
Yes.
Yeah.
You've been a key player. Thank you.
Yes.
Well, it's a team effort, without a doubt, it's a team effort.
It's definitely a big effort.
Exactly. So I don't know if anyone has any questions, but as I said, we're here to get your approval on submitting this to EPA, so I welcome any other questions you might have.
You answered my questions.
Well, that's good.
So do you need the county to accept this first, or do you want the town to accept it first?
I don't care.
Either one, I guess, would be okay.
Yeah,
I would move we adopt the air quality master plan as presented.
I'll second that.
Motion made in second, those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay,
For the county, I'll move that we accept the Lakeview Area PM Advanced Program Action Plan update of September 2017.
I'll second the motion. Motion's been made and seconded. Further discussion. Neither party has mentioned what I brought up on the summary, how that changed to is working. So apparently that won't be changed. With that, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you, Rachel.
Well, thank you.
Peter.
Actually, I do have a question for the commissioner. Sorry.
That's wise.
It is?
Okay,
well.
no, just kidding.
The flags, I wasn't sure how you guys felt, because I bought them to go somewhere else, but the other place that I bought them for, it didn't pan out the way I had hoped. So my question to you is, if I get them onto a pole, is there some place at the courthouse I could hang the pole that other people could see it besides here? I'm just trying to hang these flags in other general locations where people drive by on a daily basis so they can see, because people have a hard time seeing the lights up in the window. And we're gonna hang one out front here, and then we'll have one, I'm hoping, on Roberta's property, because it's across from high school. And I was hoping to see if I could get approval to find an option at the courthouse.
I'd say come by and identify and tell us what area.
Okay.
Yeah.
We had discussed, the possibility of putting them up on flagpoles, with the flag, but there has been some objections to that, the political side versus, this, and so we may not be able to do that, but we're thinking of, different places in town to put them where we would actually put a clamp around a pole, so that we could put them on a stick and have them up for the day. But if you guys have areas or something.
Well, they need to be very visible to
Yes.
the people driving by. I always look at your reader board at the emergency services building whenever I'm coming in to see. For some reason, I look at the window up here. And just look at the courthouse. Probably the most appropriate be on one of your own flag or light poles.
Okay.
Might be it, and then just some education that's what they're for. There's gonna be a lot of questions till people get used to it.
Right.
We could put an article, we're gonna put an article anyway.
But I would think that'd be the most visual from, we have all those trees out there, and one of the trees around. Might need to be right out on the law, it's allowable.
Hey, guys.
So you're done with us, aren't you? We will adjourn the county side of this meeting at 3:26.
Uh-oh, trouble.
and I will adjourn the city side of this meeting at 3:26.
All right, thank you guys.
Also,